Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our latest virtual assembly. I hope you had a great weekend and that you are looking forward to the week ahead here at King Henry. Only 3 weeks to go, of course, until the summer holidays, and 3 weeks for us to build some momentum and really finish this academic year on a high. I'm going to share my screen, as always, with you, so just bear with me. And you'll see on the screen appearing before you that the theme of the assembly today is about failure. And the question is, how does failure make you feel? Often when we fail at something, we feel negatively about it. It can prompt negative emotions about ourselves and about the thing that we have failed at. And often because of that, when we do fail at something, we can feel like we're rubbish, that we're not worthy of something. Our self-esteem can be really badly affected. Our self-confidence can be really low. Alternatively, it's quite common for people when they fail at something to seek to run away from it, to avoid it, to make sure they never again have to try to do that thing that they found really hard and that they struggled at the first time. Sometimes failure can just be exhausting. It can be really tiring. You feel like you're trying really hard at something and you're not quite getting it right, and the temptation can be just to give up because it's too much hard work. They are really common outcomes of failure that many people in the world would feel. They are also, though, the wrong reactions to failure too. And here at King Henry School, we have talked a lot this year about the fact that failure is never a full stop. It's never fatal. In fact, it is that essential ingredient for success. If you're going to succeed at something, you will fail at it first. Whether it's inventions around the world that would never have come to fruition if the inventors had given up at the first or second attempt, whether it's world records that would never have been surpassed if people had given up before they had tried and perfected their craft before. Failure is good. Through failure, we learn, we develop, we build our experiences so that we can succeed in the future. Failure, therefore, leads to success. It is not something to run away from. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's not something to allow yourself to feel negatively about. And it's a really simple but powerful picture at the bottom. This idea that you may miss the target many times before you hit the center. But actually, each time you miss, you are perfecting your technique, you're improving your performance so that you will eventually hit that center. And to really illustrate this point about failure in the assembly this week, I'm going to focus on something that's very high profile at the moment across the country. And that, of course, is the Euros, because the football tournament, even if you're not a football fan, you probably haven't been able to escape seeing it on TV or hearing people talk about it. And of course, England are through the group stages and are now preparing the football team for the knockout game against Germany on Tuesday night. And the picture of the man on the screen is of Gareth Southgate, the England football manager. And Gareth Southgate is very highly thought of these days. He took England to the semi-finals of the World Cup a couple of years ago that you might remember. He got an OBE from the Queen in 2019, and he's guided England into the knockout stages of this Euros tournament as well. But for Gareth Southgate, the successes that he has experienced in the last couple of years have come off the back of a number of failures earlier in his career. But those failures haven't driven him away from football. They have instead acted to build his experience, his skill and his confidence, his resilience, which he's now passing on to a younger set of players as their manager. Now, to tell you the full story about Gareth Southgate, we need to go back to the same competition, the Euros, in 1996, before any of you were born. England hosted the whole tournament, so the whole tournament was in England, and it started really well. England topped their group, beating the Netherlands, beating Scotland, and drawing with Switzerland, so having 7 points, just like the current England team, the current Euros qualified with 7 points as well. England went through into the next round and knocked out Spain. We had a star player, Paul Gascoigne, had some good performances, beating the Netherlands 4-1 along the way as well. And England got through to the semi-finals. There was a real sense and expectation and excitement across the whole of the country that summer that football was finally coming home. The football song It's Coming Home was also released that year for this tournament. And so England were at Wembley. They were in the semi-finals. They'd done really well, and they were playing Germany. Now, many of you may be aware that at the end of that match, it was really close, and it finished England 1, Germany 1, and it was 1-1 after extra time as well, which meant that the place in the final was going to come down to penalty kicks. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause the screen and the PowerPoint there because I want to show you exactly how that penalty shootout went. Many of your teachers, of course, will remember or will have watched it live, but it was a particularly nail-biting occasion. And you'll see on the screen now, hopefully, the penalty shootout. I'm going to show you all the penalty kicks so you can feel some of the tension that would have built up in 1996, but also keep an eye out for Gareth Southgate, our current England manager, but back then he was a player in the England team and his role in this shootout. So Gareth Southgate was the England player, the only England player in that penalty shootout who missed the penalty against Germany. Germany didn't miss the penalty, and so Germany went through to the final and England went out of that competition. Heartbreaking way for England on their own turf to go out of the competition to Germany on penalties. And for Gareth Southgate being the only individual to miss a penalty in front of all those people, millions watched on TV across the world, imagine the sense of upset, perhaps the sense of failure that many people would have felt and how they would have reacted to that as well. It was something that was overnight, it became something that was quite embarrassing, actually. And interestingly, in the first couple of years after he stopped playing football, Gareth Southgate really struggled to move on from that penalty miss, and that became something he was really well known for, despite the fact he'd had a really successful playing career before it. And actually, there was a Pizza Hut advert on TV a couple of years afterwards that just highlighted how much that moment, that penalty miss, had come to define Gareth Southgate. And I'm going to share with you also a quick clip of that advert as well, just because it gives you a sense, I think, of the amount of embarrassment perhaps that Gareth Southgate would have felt at the time, the amount of humour perhaps that there was in the country at the time as well. So we're just going to switch onto the next one here, and hopefully you'll be able to hear this one as well.
Miss Pizza Hut pan pizzas, unless I'm mistaken. Thank you, Miss. Come on, Gareth, it only took me 6 years to get over it. Have some pan pizza.
Pan pizza from Pizza Hut, a light, fluffy base with a crispy crust smothered with generous toppings.
Thanks a lot, boys. I feel much better now.
Ooh, this time is at the post.
Pizza Hut pan pizza. It always hits the spot.
You can see again on that advert, whilst it's all a bit of good fun and everyone's decided to be part of it, you can see how that penalty miss had really come to define Gareth Southgate by this point of his life. And many people may have walked away from football in total at that point. They may have decided to do something else with their life. They may have retreated quietly out of the public eye. But Gareth Southgate was committed to the game and committed to his career. He wanted to go on and achieve and to be successful despite that failure in Euro 1996. And so he became a football manager. You can see this picture in the bottom left of the screen. He became the manager of Middlesbrough up in the north of England, and had some good years, but ultimately Middlesbrough would eventually get relegated from the Premiership to the Championship, and Gareth Southgate was sacked from his job there too. So again, another difficult moment in his professional life. And again, some other people perhaps would have decided to call it quits, to walk away from it, to try something else. because of that lack of success. Gareth Southgate, though, didn't give up. And that goes back to the point we were talking about earlier, that to succeed, you have to be willing to fail. You have to embrace the failure. You have to learn from the failure. And then eventually, with the experience and the skill that you will have from those failed attempts, you will begin to experience the success that you deserve. And between 2013 and 16, Gareth Southgate became England under-21 manager. In 2016, he was then promoted to being the England manager. In 2018, England reached the semi-finals of the World Cup under his leadership for the first time in decades. In 2019, he was awarded an OBE by the Queen, and he's now England manager. England has progressed into the next phase of this tournament too, and is incredibly highly thought of, not just in England, but across the world, for being one of the leading football managers in the business. He has shown throughout his career, from the low point of that penalty miss in 1996 to some of the difficulties as he's re-established himself as a manager, but also in more recent years with the success that he has earned as England manager. Great resilience. He's shown real ambition and courage, particularly in terms of not giving up. At the same time, he is a very kind, polite and respectful individual and manager as well. And so he has demonstrated those core values that we have as a school at King Henry School, key values that we believe make us extraordinary. And we keep talking about being extraordinary, because being extraordinary isn't about being the best, it's about being the best version of yourself. And in every situation, I think it's safe to say that Gareth Southgate has been the best version of himself along the way. And of course, we wish England and all the team and the players the very best of luck as we go into that game tomorrow with Germany. And I know and believe that Gareth Southgate's resilience that he's learnt throughout his career will hold him in good stead as he goes into that match as well. It's really important that we're also optimistic, I think, whenever we as a community, as individuals, as a country, have a big moment coming up. So I know and believe it is coming home this year. And wherever you're watching the match tomorrow, I hope you enjoy it. But I also hope that you can reflect on Gareth Southgate's journey, particularly in terms of his resilience when faced with challenges, and actually think about how that could help us to shape our own response when we experience failure as well. Have a great week, everyone. See you soon. Take care.